What if I told you that the most terrifying villains in human history aren't monsters hiding in the shadows, but mirrors reflecting the darkest corners of your own mind? When we open the ancient scriptures, we think we know what we're going to find. Stories of epic heroes, divine wrath, and miraculous salvation. We read about women whose very names have become synonymous with wickedness: Jezebel, Delilah, Herodias, and we look at them as figures from a distant, brutal past, warnings carved into stone. But we are profoundly misunderstanding them. These aren't just fairy tales about ancient queens and seductresses. They are pristine, chilling case studies in human psychology. They are the ultimate blueprints for the anatomy of a fall. They show us how perfectly ordinary human flaws, pride, ambition, jealousy, and desire can metastasize into something truly horrifying. These stories aren't there just to make us condemn them. They are there to make us question times ourselves. Because the most dangerous secret these women hide isn't what times they did. It's how frighteningly simple it was to become the person who could do it. The truly unsettling question isn't, how could they be so evil? It's, under the right pressure, in the grip of the right temptation, could we? Jezebel, the queen of iron and idols. If a single name could echo through millennia as the ultimate synonym for manipulation and ruthless power, it is Jezebel. But her story doesn't start with a scream or the flash of a blade. It begins as so many tragedies do with a wedding. She wasn't an Israelite. She was a Phoenician princess, the daughter of a king. Her marriage to King Ahab of Israel was a cold, calculated political treaty. But Jezebel didn't arrive in her new kingdom alone. She brought her gods, she brought her priests, and she brought a ferocious, unshakable conviction. At first glance, it might have looked like a simple matter of tolerance, a foreign queen keeping her traditions. But Jezebel had no interest in coexistence. She saw the God of Israel as a rival. Under her iron will, her weak husband, King Ahab, began to bend. A temple to her god, Baal, was erected in the heart of Israel. The prophets of the true God were hunted down, slaughtered, or driven into the wilderness to survive on scraps. The true terror of Jezebel wasn't that she was an unbeliever. The terror was that she was an absolute believer in her time's own time's truth. Armed with the certainty that she was right, she felt entirely justified in destroying anyone who said she was wrong. But Jezebel's true masterpiece was the weaponization of absolute power. Consider the story of Naboth's vineyard. King Ahab wanted a small plot of land next to his palace. The owner, Naboth, politely refused to sell his ancestral inheritance. Ahab reacted like a spoiled child. He went to his room, faced the wall, and refused to eat. Enter Jezebel. She looks at her sulking husband and asks a chillingly pragmatic question. Is this how you act as king? Us. Her meaning was crystal clear. Power isn't for asking. Power is for time's taking. She didn't throw a tantrum. She orchestrated a flawless, legalistic murder. She forged letters in the king's name. She hired false witnesses to accuse Naboth of treason. Naboth was dragged outside the city and stoned to death. Jezebel returned to her husband with a simple message: get up and take the vineyard. Naboth is dead. She didn't kill in a fit of rage. She killed for convenience. A prophet named Elijah foretold a gruesome end for her, that she would die in dishonor, her body devoured by dogs. Years later, when a revolution finally came to her doorstep, Jezebel didn't run. She didn't beg. In an act of surreal defiance, she painted her eyes, did her hair, and looked down from her window at her executioner. She lived by power, and she died in a performance of it. She was thrown from the window, trampled by horses, and by the time they came to bury her, only her skull, her feet, and her hands remained. Jezebel's story endures because it's a warning about what happens when power becomes an addiction. But perhaps the most disturbing figure in her story isn't Jezebel at all. It's Ahab, the man who willingly let himself be manipulated as long as he got what he wanted. Jezebel was the storm, but Ahab was the one who opened the door. Delilah, the whisper that toppled a giant. If Jezebel's story is a political thriller, the tale of Delilah is a psychological drama played out in the quiet of a lover's bedroom. Her weapon wasn't an army. It was intimacy. Her target was Samson, a folk hero, an army of one who could tear a lion apart with his bare hands. The Philistines knew they couldn't defeat him on the battlefield, so they chose a different weapon, Delilah. They offered her a staggering fortune in silver to uncover the secret of his impossible strength. They didn't ask her to kill him, just find the secret. And so, the soft, patient siege of the human heart began. The scriptures tell us that Samson loved her, and love has a terrifyingly disarming quality. The man who could face down an entire army suddenly found himself vulnerable to the whispers of one woman. "Tell me the secret of your great strength," she would plead. At first, Samson played games. He lied. He told her to tie him with fresh bowstrings. She did, and shouted, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." He snapped the strings like thread. That was warning number one. The betrayal was obvious, yet he stayed. She pressed him again. He lied again. She tied him with new ropes. He broke free. Warning number two. Still, he stayed. A third time, she wove his hair into a loom. He broke free again. Warning number three. Why didn't he leave? This is where the myth becomes painfully human. Maybe Samson was arrogant, believing he was invincible. Or maybe he was so starved for affection that he was willing to believe a beautiful lie over an ugly truth. Finally, Delilah deployed the ultimate weapon, emotional blackmail. She wept. She nagged him day and night. "How can you say you love me when you won't confide in me?" And the scripture says, his soul was vexed to death. The strongest man in the world was broken not by a sword, but by a nagging voice and the relentless pressure of fake emotional pain. He broke. He told her everything. His strength was in his uncut hair. He handed her the key to his soul. That night, in one of the most tragic images in history, Samson slept with his head in Delilah's lap. The invincible warrior, utterly vulnerable, resting in the arms of his own destruction. She shaved his head. His strength vanished. The Philistines seized him, bound him, and gouged out his eyes. The champion of Israel was plunged into eternal darkness. Samson didn't lose a battle. He lost himself in a relationship. Delilah used no sword. She used words, proximity, and the illusion of love. It's a bitter, permanent reminder. Not everyone who is close to you is times you. And sometimes, the greatest vulnerabilities aren't physical. They are emotional. Herodias, the vengeance of a wounded ego. Where Jezebel sought power and Delilah sought wealth, the story of Herodias is driven by something far more venomous: wounded pride. Herodias was married to Herod Antipas, a regional king, but the marriage was a massive scandal. She had previously been married to Herod's own brother. It was a forbidden union, and one man dared to say it out loud: John the Baptist. John was a wild prophet of the desert. He feared no king, and he publicly condemned the marriage. For Herodias, his voice was intolerable. King Herod actually feared John and found him intriguing, so he simply threw him in prison to keep the peace. But for Herodias, prison wasn't enough. As long as John was alive, the truth was alive, and her wounded ego festered into a homicidal obsession. Her moment came at Herod's lavish birthday feast. The wine was flowing. The powerful elite were watching. Herodias sent her young daughter, Salome, to dance for the king. Herod was so captivated, so drunk on pride and wine, that he made a reckless public oath: "Ask me for anything, up to half my kingdom." The girl ran to her mother, and Herodias unleashed the darkness she had been nursing for months. She didn't ask for gold. She didn't ask for land. She looked at her daughter and said, "Ask for the head of John the Baptist on a platter." Imagine the scene: a roaring banquet hall, suddenly frozen in horror. The king was distressed. He knew it was wrong, but he had made a vow in front of his wealthy friends. To back down would make him look weak. His public image was more important to him than an innocent man's life. The order was given. The severed head was brought out like a gruesome party favor. John the Baptist died because he spoke an inconvenient truth to a woman who refused to hear it. But the true horror of this story is the complicity of the crowd. The weak king, the manipulated daughter, the silent guests. Evil rarely triumphs because of one person. It triumphs when good people sit at the table and do nothing. Herodias asks us a highly uncomfortable question. When you are confronted with a truth about yourself that you don't want to hear, do you seek to change, or do you try to destroy the messenger? Athaliah, the throne of blood. If the other stories are about passion, lust, or pride, the story of Athaliah is a masterclass in pure sociopathic ambition. This is the story of a woman who slaughtered her own family to sit on a throne. Athaliah was the daughter of Jezebel. Ambition was in her blood. She married into the royal line of Judah, and her son became king. But when her son was assassinated in a political coup, Athaliah didn't weep. She saw a political crisis. Her connection to power was gone. So she made a decision of unimaginable cruelty. She ordered the execution of the entire royal family, her own grandchildren, toddlers, infants. She looked at her own bloodline and saw only competitors. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was a calculated purge. She seized the throne and ruled through terror for 6 years. But she made one mistake. One baby prince, her grandson Joash, was smuggled away and hidden in the temple. For 6 years, the rightful king grew up in the shadows. When he turned 7, the high priest orchestrated a counter coup. They brought the boy out, crowned him, and the city erupted in cheers. Athaliah heard the noise. She rushed to the temple, saw the boy, tore her robes, and shrieked, "Treason! Treason!" The absolute irony. The woman who murdered her entire family was crying treason. She was dragged out of the temple and executed at the gates of the palace she had stolen. Athaliah's story is a terrifying monument to what happens when ambition is untethered from morality. When power becomes your only god, human beings, even your own flesh and blood, become nothing more than tools or obstacles. Potiphar's wife, the shadow of false accusation. Our final story doesn't take place in a palace. It happens behind the closed doors of a private home. The woman at its center is so archetypal, history didn't even record her name. She is known simply as Potiphar's wife. Joseph was a young man sold into slavery in Egypt. Through sheer competence and integrity, he rose to manage the household of Potiphar, the captain of Pharaoh's guard. But Potiphar's wife noticed the handsome young slave. Her desire turned into a demand. "Come to bed with me." Joseph refused. He told her he couldn't betray his master, and he couldn't sin against God. He had no power, no status, and no protection. Yet, he held his ground. 1. For Potiphar's wife, this rejection was a deep, unforgivable wound to her ego. One day, she cornered him in an empty house, grabbing him by his cloak. Joseph chose flight over compromise. He ran, leaving his cloak in her hands. And in that moment, her spurned lust curdled into vengeance. If she couldn't possess him, she would destroy him. She took the very cloak he left behind, the physical proof of his desperate innocence, and twisted it into evidence of his guilt. She called her husband and spun a vicious lie, claiming the foreign slave had tried to assault her. There was no trial, no investigation. It was the word of a powerful woman against a powerless slave. Joseph was thrown into a dungeon. This story is a deep exploration of what happens when desire is denied. For some, rejection brings reflection. For others, it is a declaration of war. She couldn't have his body, so she assassinated his character. It's a chilling reminder that the loudest voice in the room is not always the most honest one. Conclusion: the mirror in the darkness. Jezebel, Delilah, Herodias, Athaliah, Potiphar's wife. It is so easy to label them, to file them away as monsters of a bygone era. But if we do that, we miss the entire point. The Bible didn't record these histories so we could feel superior. It recorded them because the exact same seeds of their downfall exist within time's every single human heart. None of these women woke up one morning and decided to be evil. Their descent was gradual. Jezebel started with the pride of believing she was always right. Delilah started by valuing money over a human soul. Herodias started by nursing a grudge. Athaliah started by loving power more than people. The common thread isn't their gender. It's that they allowed something else, power, money, ego, vengeance, to sit on the throne of their hearts. And once that idol was in place, any cruelty could be justified. So, the terrifying question these stories force us to ask is about time's us. When we burn with envy at someone else's success, are we taking a step on Jezebel's path? When we betray a friend's trust for personal gain, are we walking in the footsteps of Delilah? When we hold on to bitter resentment because someone told us a hard truth, is that the whisper of Herodias in our soul? When we ruin someone's reputation to protect our own pride, are we echoing the cold calculus of Athaliah and Potiphar's wife? The greatest spiritual battle you will ever fight isn't against an external enemy. It's against the shadows inside yourself. These scriptures don't give us perfect heroes. They give us broken people to serve as mirrors, not to condemn us, but to warn us, to ask, is there anything in me that could become like them? If left unchecked, the line between a righteous person and a cruel one isn't a massive wall. It's a path, chosen one small decision at a time. And that is the profound, urgent hope of these stories. It's not about whether we have ever been wrong. It's about whether we can recognize the path we are on and find the courage to turn back before we step too far into the dark. If this video made you look at these ancient stories and yourself a little differently, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I want to hear from you in the comments. Which of these stories do you think holds the most powerful warning for today's world? Thank you for watching, and remember, I'll always check the mirror. I'll see you in the next one.